Welcome back here, Drew and Brandon talking sports on a Thursday evening. Brandon, how's it going?
Well, yeah, I mean, like we talked about it, like there's we haven't met in 2 weeks now, and like I mean, it was just the worst 2 weeks possible to ever take off when doing a sports podcast.
Yeah, we probably missed what, maybe 15 NFL moves, probably more, maybe 20, like at least 15, like
Yeah,
ones that are like legit, like who these players are. We probably missed, I don't know, maybe 8 baseball moves, a few trades, a few pretty big trades. I mean, probably not as big as the NFL trades, but we missed some pretty big MLB stuff. Also, some NBA stuff that had we been recording, we probably would have talked about. Um, but we're gonna talk NFL here. We don't have forever. If we did, we'd talk about everything, but we're trying to keep it, So
yeah,
we felt it would be kind of redundant to talk about every move just because it has been, I think, almost 2 weeks, if not 2 weeks, since we recorded, and there's been so many moves. It's like, do we want to talk about Brady unretiring, even though that happened, 11, 12 days ago? We can talk about it. It doesn't need to be. It's a lot. So we're picking three of our favorite moves and then three of our least favorite moves.
yeah.
My three least and three most aren't in a particular order. Are yours or
No, no, they're not.
okay? Mine aren't either. Some of mine it's kind of hard to pick. I think they're all just. There's so many moves. It's hard to really pick a least favorite and a most favorite. I do have one that I would probably say is like a least favorite, but anyways, do you want to start least or most? Do you have a
Do we want to go one and one, or do we want to just do all three for the most and then all three for the worst?
I say let's. I'm down for one and one.
All right. Then I'll start it off with one of my best again, not in any particular order, but just the first one I wrote down. And mine is Matt Ryan getting traded to the Colts. They all they have to do is give up a third round pick, 82nd overall pick in this year's draft for Matt Ryan. They even restructured his contract. So instead of being a $24 million cap hit, he's now an $18 million cap hit. So they have even more salary cap. Again, there's not many free agents still left, but again, you can still upgrade and improve at different spots with that. And again, he's not the same quarterback he was the last a couple years ago. Particularly his 2016 year when he was MVP, but he's still a solid quarterback. You give him weapons, he has a run game. That's something that he's really never had. Maybe 1 or 2 years of Devonte Freeman earlier in his career with Michael Turner. That was about 10 years ago, though. He's never really had a running game like this with an offensive line like this. Arguably the best offensive line in football and the best running back. So for him to be in a system like this with Frank Reich, you have a top 10 defense for sure. Obviously with Darius Leonard there. So I think it's a perfect situation. It's a better, upgraded, different version of Carson Wentz than what you had last year. Even though Carson Wentz's numbers 27-7, they'll throw those numbers out there. He just never came up clutch in big situations. He was always missing guys. He wasn't taking checkdowns. He was trying to make the big play. Matt Ryan will take the check down. He can make the big play if you need him to. He may have a turnover here and there, but I think that with an offense where you can run the ball more, you're taking the ball out of his hands, which should limit those turnovers. So I think it's a great move. I think it was between him or Jimmy G. I'm surprised that he isn't on the move yet. Jimmy G. We'll figure out if we'll talk about it when he does. I'm assuming he will, but I think it was between them two, and probably the package for Ryan was for sure less than Jimmy G. So I just think it was a perfect move for them that should have them honestly being. I would have them at the top of the AFC South right now. I think they're better than Tennessee is right now.
So we did not share our list before this video, so we don't
No,
know. But also, one of my favorite is the Colts acquiring Matt Ryan as well. I
yeah,
think it's a no brainer. I think you have to put this one on your most favorite. Spoiler alert: Deshaun Watson is not my most favorite. I'm not saying obviously Watson is a better quarterback right now than Ryan. Also younger, probably more potential as well. Higher ceiling probably, but Matt Ryan has been about as consistent as they get. Even if you take out his MVP year, he's still on his worst days. He's probably still about a B quarterback, and on his best days, he's about an A minus. So he's pretty consistent. You know what you're gonna get. He should be a guy that can take checkdowns. He'll take what a defense gives him for the most part. I do think there are some choking questions that come into play. I mean, just like any player that's been on the Falcons, that's always going to be a question. Um, it comes down to who do you attribute to the Super Bowl loss to more, especially the choking down the line, is it Ryan or Shanahan? I think it's about 50-50. Maybe I would honestly probably blame more Shanahan. Um, so I guess what I'm saying is hopefully that is kind of eliminated on the Colts, because I think that'd be honestly the big thing I'd worried about is you get to the wild card and you got a key matchup with the Bills. It's a bit of a high scoring game. You've kept Allen off the field for the most part, and Ryan throws a pick in the third quarter that leads to a Bills touchdown. That's a 14-point swing, and the game's over. So, but I do love this move. It's only for a third rounder. It's not a guy you got to commit to for many, many years. It's a guy who's he's just a really, really insanely good bridge quarterback, right? I mean, when we talk about the bridges of the NFL, we talk about the Trubiskys, the Bridgewaters, the Keenums, maybe like the Garoppolos. Matt Ryan, to me, is a better version than pretty much any bridge in the league. And he wasn't a guy that was like for sure on the move this offseason. He wasn't, on the same level as like a Jimmy G in terms of like he's for sure gone after this offseason. So to get him for a third rounder, I think is a steal. I mean, you're getting Ryan for less than you got for Carson Wentz. And I think Ryan is just he's an upgrade over Carson Wentz in my opinion. Maybe if Carson Wentz plays his best, he's not, but what's the odds Carson Wentz returns to his Philly version? It's probably less than like 3% at this point. I mean, that's a Hail Mary at this point. So I would agree. I have him in my most favorite. So
Yeah. And my second one, you said you didn't have Deshaun Watson on yours. I have him on mine. I was definitely thinking about it, a little bit hesitant about it, but when you look at just who you traded for and what you upgraded your position at, it's a no-brainer for me. I mean, you went from Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson. Again, arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league when obviously he's playing. If anything, he's 6 or 7, depending. Allen's obviously jumped up. Herbert's obviously going to move up. Burrow's going to move up. So obviously you have to look at that as well. But again, he's a top 5 talent. He's 25, 26 years old. Now, the contract that he did sign, it's a 5-year contract, $230 million fully guaranteed, which is, insane to think about when, again, he missed all of last year. He still may get suspended. That is still a question. Whether it's 6 games, 8 games, he may not get suspended. We don't know, but they did sign Jacoby Brissett as a backup just in case. But again, we're looking at this as, obviously this is a move forward now and also for the future with him being young with the contract. So again, this is a team that if you had a better quarterback in place, I don't know if they're the best team, but they're one of the better teams in the AFC. If you put a guy like Deshaun Watson on this team, they do leapfrog. Now the AFC's gotten better, but they do leapfrog into being one of the better teams. Now, I don't know if they're championship level team right now, but they're definitely on that way with the guy at quarterback already locked in and the age. So I think it's a great move. Now, obviously, they gave up first round picks in 2022, 2023, 2024, along with a third rounder and a couple fourth round picks. They gave up a lot. But again, you're expecting to be in the playoffs, competing for Super Bowls, AFC championships. So you don't really care about those picks, to be honest. And again, you have a guy who is 25, 26 years old. Most quarterbacks coming out are only a couple years younger than him, and you know what you're getting with Watson on the field, obviously. So it's for me, I just think it's a great move. And, it's if teams want to compete for championships, you have to make a move to upgrade at your quarterback position. It's the most important position in all of sports. There's not even a question about it. And the Browns, give them credit. They made a move and they went and got Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I'll talk about it quickly and move on to my second most favorite. This is not on my least favorite. It's not on my most favorite. The only reason is I think it's a big contract. It's a big risk. It's a lot of draft picks. 5 years, $230 million, fully guaranteed to a guy who hasn't played in over a year now, is a little risky. I think the reason he was able to be traded was he's not going to face he's probably not going to go to jail over all the accusations that everybody still faces 22 civil lawsuits. I think it's just a little scary. I don't really know what's going on. It seems like he'll be fine in terms of legal stuff, but he still may get suspended, which I don't think should deter you from making that trade. If it's a 6 to 8 game suspension, it's you just take it, right? I mean, that's not going to be the determination between you making the trade and not making the trade. But 3 firsts, 2/3 and 2/4 or something. It's about that, and that's a lot to me. And I don't think this roster, if this was 500 days ago with Deshaun Watson, and you had Deshaun Watson for the game where Mahomes goes down in the third quarter, I think that's huge, right? But I'm not sure this roster is as good as it was then. So I think it's a tough move, and I do think it's a lot. And honestly, let's say Watson, like right now I'd probably have Watson in that like 6 to 8 best quarterback in the league territory. Maybe I'm like slightly lower on him than most, but that's where I probably have him. Let's say he is about that. That's obviously great, right? But that's still like a lot to give up for a guy who's not top 3 in the league. Um, so, and if he falls off anymore, like if he is like the 10th, if he's kind of near Dak Prescott territory where he's like 9, 10, 11, then I think that's a huge fail. So I think he really, there's not much room for error, right? I think he has to be just as good as he was when he was still on the field. I think that's going to happen, but there is room for concern there. But anyways, my second most favorite, this is like a little bit of I'm cheating a little bit, but still not really. It's two people, but it's really just the Bengals offensive line additions. It's Alex Kappa and Lyle Collins. Now, Lyle Collins specifically, this is something you're gonna have to maybe, I guess, educate me and the audience on. As far as I'm aware, 3 years, 21 million. That's a hell of a deal for Lyle Collins. Now is he, if he had been drafted in the first round, like people were anticipating going into whatever year draft he was coming out of, would that have been a great pick? I think I don't know if it would have been a great pick, but I think it still would have been a decent pick. Anyways, he ended up going, I believe fully undrafted or really late in the draft.
Fully
Cowboys
undrafted,
pick
yeah.
him. Yeah, Cowboys pick him up. Obviously a great move. I mean, he's turned out to be a really good, solid player. Cowboys end up cutting him, and the Bengals get him 3 or 21. I like that move. I think it's not a lot of money to give up for Collins, and even if he doesn't turn out to be as good as you'd hope, it's only 3 years, 21, and you need to make moves in this offensive line, and the draft cannot be the only place you go. And then the second move is Alex Kappa on a 4-year, 35 million. It's a fairly big contract, I guess, for a guard, but it's really still not like too much money, right? And the Bengals have historically been a cheap franchise, and I'm not worried about them, having spent too much money and not being able to do anything with all the money, that they don't have any money left and they can't go out and get somebody. So I'm not really worried about it. I like this contract, and overall, if the Bengals can come back with a similar roster next year and Chase can at least be the same productivity and Burrow can stay the same and not regress, I think this team should still be in contention for the division, even though the Ravens are now healthier and the Browns now have Deshaun. And the Steelers, I mean, they are what they are, but they're still a competitive team in the AFC North. I like those moves for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about putting just Bengals offensive line on mine because again, they had to make upgrades, and like you said, you can't just do it through the draft. You have to spend money. So I at least give him credit for that. Now, Collins, look, he's a good player for sure. He's battled some injury issues, but he's maybe not as good as maybe what the Pro Bowl selection would tell you, and kind of like the accolades may say. Now, look, he's a good player. He's playing right tackle. He's not going to be your left tackle, so it's obviously less to worry about. And it's an upgrade of whoever was there last year for them for sure. And again, the contract's not crazy. I think it was 3 for 30. I think it was. I don't know what the guarantee was on that. But yeah, again, it's not. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I won't say I'm happy to see him leave Dallas because obviously he's better. He's just I know what he is, but yeah, again, I think it's all right for a team like that. You have to make a move like that. You have to get a guy who has been proven in this league, and if he can stay healthy, he's for sure an above starter for sure. And again, he has that potential to be a Pro Bowl type guy for multiple years. It just depends on if he can stay healthy. But that I guess that was your second best one. Moving on to my last one. I'm going with Devante Adams to the Raiders. I went with all three trades. I tried not to. I tried to go with a signing, but to be fair, I mean, two of the guys did re-sign. And that obviously one of those is Devante Adams. He reworked his contract. He signed a 5-year, 140 million dollar contract. That's about $28 million per year, and I think the guarantee. I don't exactly know what the guarantee on it was. I think it was 40 million or 60 million. I think it was $65 million that's guaranteed. Look, he's in my eyes, he's the number one receiver in the league. He's been for a couple of years, probably the last 2 years, I would say he's been the clear cut for me number one receiver. Now you may see Tyreek Hill as the most lethal wide receiver and the most, just unpredictable wide receiver. I can get down with that. But just pure wide receiver talent, I think it's Devonte Adams. Look, the Raiders with all the moves in the AFC West with Wilson going to the Broncos, The Chargers making moves, obviously the Chiefs being the Chiefs, like you have to make a move. Being that last team in the division, in my eyes, they were. But you get Devante Adams, like that immediately upgrades your offense. Now you can say what you want about Derek Carr. I think he's actually a pretty good starter. Now, obviously, is he a top 10 quarterback? Is he an elite quarterback? Obviously not. But if you surround them with Hunter Renfrow, Devante Adams, Darren Waller, and Josh Jacobs, and you can make some improvements to the offensive line, then you're talking about at least a competent offense that can go down and score points. Again, you have Josh McDaniels there now as their head coach, so you'd expect him with a full array of weapons at his offense for to do something with. I'm assuming that he can actually do something with those guys. So I'm expecting big things out of Derek Carr. And again, Devonte Adams, they went to college together. There's somewhat of a connection there. So I think it's a trade that was necessary with all the moves being made in the AFC West. And you can't be the fourth team in that division and expect to make the playoffs. You just can't. So you had to make a move. You had to try something, and I think this was something that was necessary. And they didn't give up, anything. They didn't give up too much, crazy. I don't think for the number one wide receiver in the league. So I really like the move, to be honest.
Yeah, this is a move I didn't have my most favorite or least favorite. I think it's an okay move. I like it. I don't love it. I think the contract's a lot. 5 years, 145 mil. We're talking quarterback money for a wide receiver. Now, listen, to me, I don't know if I'd have him as my number one, but he's up there. I mean, he's still in that elite territory. Would I prefer D-Hop, like pure wide receiver on the field? Probably. I would probably still take Hill as well. I'm probably higher on Hill than most, which is I will get to Hill in a bit, but I don't love the move. I don't hate the move. I like the move. I do think you probably had to do something as the Raiders. Now I think you're in a kind of a weird spot. Do we rebuild or do we go for it all? Because kind of Carr's in like almost the prime of his career at this point. Like you're at that point where you got to make the decision. Do we stick with Carr and make the move, or do we kind of rebuild? And I'm not sure going for it all is the right move. I don't really know. I think you're in a really tough spot. But I think this is going to be a really competent offense. I mean, Adams, Carr, Jacobs, you have no excuses to not be a top probably 10 offense next year. You really don't. Especially Josh McDaniels is supposed to be, one of the next great offensive minds. If he is, then this should be a top 10 offensive team. But anyways, I'll get on to my third and last most favorite move. This is a signing. This is the Chargers signing J.C. Jackson to a 5-year, $82 million deal, $40 million guaranteed.
Oh, wow.
This may be a little bit surprising. I like this move if I'm the Chargers. And it was a signing I'm not necessarily sure I would have loved if the Patriots made. I would have liked it. It's a lot of money. And it's a cornerback that probably isn't. He's not the thing that. What I'm going to get to is, and what I'm trying to say is essentially, it's really tough to grade cornerbacks in 2022. The best cornerback pretty much is Ramsey. Now, did he have a great postseason? No, he didn't. But that's kind of where I'm getting to is even the best cornerbacks in the league, the elite of the elite, are going to get beat. Is J.C. Jackson a lockdown guy that's really deserving of top-of-the-line cornerback money? I don't know. Probably not. But what do I have to compare him to? It's Ramsey, it's Jair Alexander, it's probably like a Marlon Humphrey. And do I think he's on that tier? I honestly do. I think he's a guy that is going to make a lot of plays. I think he'll take a few risks. He's a ball hawk. He's going to be near the ball. He's Mr. INT for a reason. Is a lot of it luck? Sure. But I think when it's been over the course of multiple years, I think there is a little bit of like not a skill, but just like he's just a guy that's near the ball a lot, and he makes plays. So I don't think it's over the top money. Only $40 million guaranteed. I don't think is too crazy. 5-year 82. So I do like the move if I'm the Chargers. And again, we talked about having to make a move in the AFC West. The Chargers have made moves. Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack. If Khalil Mack can be 80% of what he was in his prime, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, J.C. Jackson, Derwin James, this should be a very, very good defense that is fun to watch at the very least. If not, it should be like a top 5 defense. And offensively, we know what they are offensively. They've re-signed Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, who is more of a fantasy guy than an IRL guy, but he's a weapon offensively. He's able to catch the ball. He's almost like a slot receiver and a running back at the same time. This should be a really good team and a really fun team to watch, especially if you're big on Herbert.
Yeah, it's funny that you put Jackson at your best because I actually had him on my worst. And that's why
Wow,
I had
you're
my
not a big fan
reaction
of
that
the
I
move.
had. Well, I look, I like you just said, I give him credit because they needed to. Again, when you're in the AFC West in this offseason, you had to make moves. You just had to. And again, they needed a help in the secondary. Derwin's great, but also he has some injury concerns as well. And obviously, he's a safety, he's not a corner. So you needed a corner. So I give him credit for getting the top corner on the market in JC Jackson. But, you know, my doubts with him, which again, you would obviously, know more than I would because obviously he was a Patriot. But, he's going for the interception. Not saying he's only going for that. I'm not doubting he's not a good cover corner, but is he the best cover corner in the league? Probably not. And again, the money, like you said, 5 years, 82.5 million, 40 million guaranteed. It's a lot of money. Again, for a guy who in a Patriot system with a Bill Belichick, with has been on really good defenses the last couple of years. Like, he's always been in a system like that. Like, let's see how he is when he's the true number one corner in a different system. Now, Staley's obviously their head coach. He's obviously a defensive head coach. So maybe that helps him. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But I wouldn't say like this is like an egregious, like signing or anything like that. I don't think it's a bad signing. I just don't know how well it's going to work out. But like I said, I think it's a move they had to make because again, obviously Tyreek Hill is not in that division anymore, but like it would have been Tyreek Hill and Devonte Adams, and then the trio that the Broncos have in Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. So that's a lot of wide receivers that you have to cover in the AFC West. And obviously Tyreek's not there anymore, but it's still a lot. So you definitely needed a corner, but I just don't know how much I love the money aspect, and I don't know how much he's going to live up to that contract. To be honest, if he's not getting interceptions, is he really a true lockdown corner? Again, that's something that you would know more than I would.
I'll go really quick, then we'll get into least favorite. Um, I don't think he's a Stephon Gilmore when he would run Depoy. I don't think he's a Revis. I don't think he's a Ramsey in his best year. But again, in 2022, the league has just changed, and I don't think it's fair to compare him to a lot of these guys. I don't think it's fair to go back to 2013 and compare him to Richard Sherman. I don't think it's fair to go back to 2011 and compare him to Revis. That's not fair anymore. The league's not the same. Those guys are first bout Hall of Famers. 5-year 82 for JC to me is really fair. And what does Bill Belichick think of JC Jackson? He didn't think he was a top 10 corner in the league because if he did, he would have franchise tagged him. To me, that's just clear. He didn't even franchise tag him. And you probably should have because you probably could have got at least something for JC. Was it going to be a lot? I don't know. But could you have gotten a mid-round pick? I think so. Because obviously the team still has to sign that person to a contract, so you're not going to get like a first because he's not on a 5-year deal for nothing. You have to sign him to 82 million for it guaranteed. But I do like the move for the Chargers. I do think he will pan out to be a perennial top 10 corner. So I don't think it'll be an overpay. I really
Well,
don't.
yeah, I mean, I would hope that he'd be a top 10 corner. I think you're kind of looking at top five and probably top three, I would say at the most. I mean, top 10 corner, I think there's a lot of guys in the top 10 cornerbacks who, you probably wouldn't even say are really that good, to be honest.
I think that's just where I think we're at in the league, right? I think that's why I don't think this is a bad signing, and that's a pretty good one. I think top 10 is kind of his floor. I think he can be top 5. I think he probably could be top 4. I don't know. We'll see. But I do like the signing.
Well, that was my first worst, so I guess you should
Oh,
go with
okay.
your
Yeah,
first
you're right.
worst.
Okay, yeah. My first worst. This is honestly my least favorite move of the whole offseason. Christian Kirk to the Jaguars, 4 years,
Yeah,
72 million.
we
It's
talked
just
about it, and yeah,
yeah. So we were both making our list. We essentially said something along the lines of like, there's this one guy that stuck out. We didn't tell each other who it was. Is this the guy that we were? This is the guy we were talking about. It's
yeah,
Christian Kirk to the Jaguars. Listen, Kirk is not good. I'm sorry. He's like a number 3 receiver to me. He's like a Kendrick. He's like, if I'm gonna put him on a tier list of wide receivers, he's on that like Valdez Scantling. He's on that like Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, um, kind of tier. He's on that like Cedric Wilson type of tier. He's not. I don't even think he's a number 2 wide receiver on a good team.
no,
So when you clearly saw the Cardinals when they lost D Hop and had to have Kirk as the number 1 wide receiver, things just weren't the same offensively. Now was that the only reason that to attribute to their downfall? No, but it was a reason. 4 years, 72. Congratulations to Kirk and his agent, but I think it's an awful move for the Jaguars, and I don't know what that team's doing. So with this move at least, so I horrible.
yeah. I mean, I'll talk about it for a little bit, but Like when I saw all the Jaguars moves that they've been doing this offseason, like they're going out and spending money, and again they have Lawrence on a rookie contract, so this is the time to do that. So I give them credit for doing that and trying to make build the steps to being going towards being a great team. But this contract was just ridiculous. Again, he's at best your number three wide receiver. Again, when Diop got injured, again he had a good year. He had just under 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, but he's a big play guy. He's not like a route runner guy. He's not a possession guy. He's not going to do stuff like that. He's just a big play guy, which is the perfect number three on teams where you're getting safeties, you're getting linebackers on you, so you can go down the field, you can beat someone down the field. He's fast, but this was just a crazy amount of money for someone who just really hasn't done anything in the league. So even though I like the Jaguars' other moves, I just this one I just couldn't condemn. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. They could have gotten anyone else for less money that's probably better. That would have helped Lawrence out more. I would have liked, like a possession guy, a route runner guy, someone you could trust getting the ball to for Lawrence. I still don't think they've done that. And again, this signing just 37 million guaranteed is just crazy for someone like Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I mean, let's even compare it to a move that you didn't like. I mean, this is to me, it's just insane, right? He's on a 4-year 72 with 37 guaranteed. The JC contract is 5 years 82.40 guaranteed.
Yeah, no, I
So
know.
it's like there's no way that in any world am I looking at this Kirk contract and saying it's okay.
No.
There's no way. He no, I would be shocked if they ended up actually not regretting this contract in about a year.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was your second worst. I'll get to my second worst. It's the Patriots trading Shaq Mason to the Bucks for a 6th round pick. They essentially traded him for nothing. And this is a guy that if it's not J.C. Jackson, this is probably, objectively speaking, your best player was Shaq Mason. Now he was a guard. He wasn't the most important position, but he wasn't on some crazy contract. It just didn't really make much sense. Now my only thing is the Patriots have to know something I don't, which I really don't think is the case. I don't know. I don't like the move at all. A really good guard that you've had for a long time, and you trade him to the Bucks for a 6th round pick. It's a head scratcher. I haven't liked the Patriots offseason at all, pretty much. So it's a head scratcher. I really don't know. It doesn't make
Yeah.
much sense to me.
Yeah, I don't have much to say on this. Again, this is more of like when it's your team, you kind of know these guys more. Obviously, I know who Shaq Mason is, but just knowing the inner works of that, I don't know. But I guess yeah, I mean, for a 6th round pick, again, does the Brady aspect play a factor in this? Now, not from the Patriots side, but whatever factor that possibly could play in this, I don't know. But yeah, clearly you're not a fan of it. Again, you're the Patriots fan, you would know. But for my last one. This is more of just like a petty pick from me. You may be able to figure it out from that. I don't know, but it's Randy Gregory signing with the Broncos. Obviously flipped on the Cowboys. Nothing. Didn't feel great about that, especially when I wake up, I see that news, and then an hour later he flips. I thought it was a fake report when they said that he flipped. I just couldn't believe that that was true, to be honest. Now, obviously, the details came out that the Cowboys put language in the contract that made him flip because it was if he got suspended again, then he wouldn't get paid. Because obviously, he's been suspended 3 or 4 times. He's been suspended for 2 full seasons. I think he's been suspended 50 games. And I think he's played 50 games in his career. So that just tells you exactly what you need to know. Now, obviously, last year he hasn't been suspended the last 2 years, or at least a year and a half. Last year, the only time he missed games was because of injury, and he was really good last year. Now, maybe the numbers don't exactly show that, but the impact during the game showed that. The contract he signed was the exact same contract from both teams, 5 years, 70 million, 28 guaranteed. Nothing crazy. Now, is he like a true elite pass rusher? No, but for sure on the Broncos, even with the Cowboys, like on the Cowboys, it's him, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Micah Parsons. Like I mean, those three pass rushers, like, someone's getting the sacks. Like Micah at 13, Gregory and Lawrence didn't have as many, but, it could easily be one or the other. They're all really good pass rushers. Now, Mike is obviously an elite pass rusher, but again, I'm putting this on there just because of not jealousy, but the just me, just being petty about it. And him flipping and just all of that, everything that went on with that. He like basically he's been, if you see his Twitter or Instagram or anything like that, he's just going at every Cowboys fan possible, which I don't exactly understand because we easily could have cut him 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We didn't even have to draft him in the second round when we did. So he should honestly be grateful that we even did that for him and stuck with him all these years, because he for sure would not have gotten a contract like this if we cut him 3 years ago. He would be out of the league guaranteed. So I don't know. I don't know what that's all about, but again, I use my last pick for that. Is it a good contract for the Broncos? I guess. I mean, him and Bradley Chubb. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good 1-2 tandem. I would say it's not the best in the league for sure, but it's pretty good. I would say. Now we'll just see how he performs. Playing with Bradley Chubb and obviously being on the Broncos.
Yeah, this was a contract I didn't know how to feel about either. And when I first saw it, I was like, really? Like you're gonna go for Randy Gregory when you could have just gone and re-gotten Von Miller? Obviously, that was
Yeah.
before Miller signed his contract of 6 years, 120. So the price range is, I guess, just because you signed Randy Gregory doesn't mean you can go get Von Miller instead. That's what I was assuming Von Miller was going to be somewhere in that 5 year 70 as well. Maybe
Same.
less years, but like 3 years 70, 4 years 70, 6 years 120 for a guy that's like 33 years old is a lot of money. Um,
He could have made the worst just because of the money, not the player, but the money could have made the worst free agent for one of us. I think.
but what
You
do you
agree with
mean?
that or no?
Wait, I
I'm
don't.
saying, I'm saying I think his contract, just like not the player. I think he's a great player, even though he's older. He's still a really good player, but his contract is a crazy amount of money for someone who is that old, and is not that true number one pass rusher. He's a number two pass rusher, and for the Bills, they're paying him to be their number one pass rusher. So he could have made, just based off the money and the contract, he could have made one of our top three worst signings, in my opinion. I don't know about you.
I considered it. The reason I couldn't is one, he's still going to be a great pass rusher short term. I don't think he's a number two. I do think he's a number one. I just, to me, when you get that high of an age, I think you have to load manage. Like, I think you essentially have to treat it like an NBA regular season. Instead of 82 games, it's 16. You gotta pick 4 or 5 games that you can legit. Sorry, 17. Okay. You gotta pick. There's like 5 or 6 games that you probably have to load manage for.
Yeah,
Whereas, a guy that probably like Randy Gregory, who's, I don't know, what's Randy Gregory like, 27? Not even
28 probably
28.
somewhere
Yeah,
around that.
like he's not. I don't think he's load managing in that contract. I mean, maybe towards the latter half of that contract, but Miller's like right now, like he's not playing a full 17 game season, getting 20 and a half sacks. That's not happening, in my opinion. It's definitely not happening 4 or 5 years into the contract. So, but anyways, I wasn't a big fan of the Randy Gregory contract. I do think you probably needed to make something, so maybe I should be more of a fan, but I don't think it's like a steal of a contract or anything. I don't think, and I like the Von Miller signing, but I definitely don't love it, and it is a lot of money in a lot of years. And as a Patriots fan, I'm not entirely mad the Bills made that signing because there's a possibility after 2 years. I don't think after 2 years they're gonna have regretted that first 2 years, but they will, in my opinion, probably regret the last like 3 or 4 years of that contract. And you probably don't sign them without including those last 3 or 4. So there's
Yeah.
a good chance it's still worth it because you want to win now. You have an incredible team right now. So, but anyways, I'll get into my least favorite, third least favorite. This is the Chiefs trading Tyreek Hill. It was something you didn't include at all, right?
No.
I listen. He's, to me, he's a top 3 or 4 wide receiver. He's in that. If we're making a tier list, like if we're having that elite tier, he's in that tier no matter what. In my opinion, it's slightly apples to oranges if you want to compare him to D Hop or Devonte. Devonte is a more, I guess, traditional wide receiver, right? He's a better route
Yeah.
runner. He's a bigger frame. He's a better possession wide receiver. He's more consistent game to game. But Tyreek Hill is just the best non-conventional wide receiver. He's short, which obviously isn't ideal necessarily, but he's so quick, and his top line speed. Like if you're gonna do like a 100 yard meter, or sorry, 100 meter dash or whatever, like in the Olympics, is he gonna beat everybody in the NFL? I don't know. Maybe not. But that first 0 to 50, I think he has anybody in the NFL beat, especially in pads. It's not even close. To me, that's what really separates him from a lot of the guys in the league. Is he catches just like a 20 yard post, and it's not like a wide receiver, a cornerback is really, he's beating the cornerback, but the cornerback's still there to make the tackle, and he will just run past a corner and a safety and score a touchdown. It's insane. He's, Out of all the guys in the Chiefs, he's the guy that when the momentum's not looking good for the Chiefs, one completion at Tyreek Hill and it completely changes the game. It happened multiple times in the postseason throughout his career, multiple times in the regular season. I don't think it's a good trade for the Chiefs. I do think you got a good amount in back. You got a first, second, I believe another mid-round pick in there as well. So you got a good amount of stuff back for Hill. Is it enough though? I don't know. I don't think you any more than this, like another first or another second, and that's like a lot for a team to give up. And I'm not saying I would have liked it for the Chiefs, but I wouldn't have hated it as much. But the problem is it's you can't recreate Tyreek Hill. You can't trade this first, second, and fourth rounder for another version of Tyreek Hill. Even if you brought another really good wide receiver in here, it's just you have to change your game plan. You're going to have to change the way you call plays. You're not as dynamic as an offense. Even if you're more methodical, you're not as dynamic. And I really thought the dynamic with Hill, Kelsey, and Mahomes really worked well. I think it's a shame because it was a fun team to watch. And I don't know how well utilized Hill will be on the Dolphins. Although I think you were more in the camp of like, I don't like Tyreek Hill because if he does go to a team that's like the Dolphins, I don't know how good he'll be. I don't know if he's going to be as good as he was on the Chiefs. I still think he's a top 5 wide receiver, probably top 3 in my opinion. But anyways, I don't like the Chiefs trading him I don't love the move for the Dolphins, by the way. Like I think that this is a lot to give up for a guy who, listen, I do have him as a top 3 receiver. I don't know that there's enough on that team for it to be worth it because that's a lot to give up. It really is a lot to give up still.
Yeah, no, look, maybe I don't love Tyreek Hill, but I still think I think he's a top wide receiver on the Chiefs, obviously, even on the Dolphins. I think he's still a top wide receiver. But again, he's just that big play guy where it works more in Kansas City when you have a quarterback like Mahomes, where it's not going to work as much in Miami when your quarterback's Tua. Tua just can't throw the ball more than 15 yards down the field. He just can't. So him and Waddle, I think are going to be really exciting. Like that's a pretty good 1-2 duo in Waddle and Hill. I mean, both are probably the 2 fastest guys in the leagues. I mean, Hill for sure is. Waddle is probably one of the fastest guys in the league. Again, like we saw Waddle last year. I think he had 100 catches last year. Like that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of slants, end arounds, screens, short yard passes where that could work. Because again, you give Hill the ball, he's going to make a play happen. We've seen it a million times. Even if it's 40 yards down the field when he's catching it, or it's 5 yards down the field when he's catching it, he's going to make a play because he's just faster than every single person on the field. But I understand, just from the Chiefs' perspective, I understand why you traded him. Look, the contract he signed is 4 years, $120 million, and it's at least $70 million like guaranteed. I think it's even more, as I think when next year comes into play, I think it's even more. So like the Chiefs just couldn't afford it. I mean, you're paying Mahomes a ton of money. You're paying Chris Jones. You're paying Kelsey. You're paying guys on your offensive line. Like you just had no money to spend on Hill. One guy has to be left out, and it was Hill. And again, you can't replace Tyreek Hill, but you can at least make him up somewhat. The draft picks, obviously free agency signings, whatever. You can somewhat make his production up because, again, you just couldn't afford that contract. Now, again, he's the most lethal weapon maybe I've ever seen on a football field, just personally, because he's so unpredictable, he's so unguardable that he can just he can change the dynamic of a game literally in one play. I don't know how many times you could say that about other players in the league. So yes, it's going to be a killer. We'll see how they play. Like, I wonder how Kelsey's going to be. Now, Kelsey's still going to be a Pro Bowl, All Pro type guy, in my opinion. But we'll see how it affects their offense. We'll see how it affects Mahomes, because again, you can't just chuck it down the field and Mahomes and Tyreek's going to be open. Like that's just not a route that's available anymore. But look, is it going to affect them that much? They'll still be a top team. They'll still probably be a Super Bowl contender for sure. So, I understand that, but. Yeah, like they'll just reset again. They found Tyreek Hill in the 4th round, 5th round, I believe it was. Like, not saying you can find him again, but you can find someone else like Tyreek Hill. You could find another top wide receiver in the draft that you can develop over the next couple of years. So, again, they had to do it because they couldn't pay him. So I understand that, but we'll see how much it affects them, this year and probably next year.
I think it's going to be tough to find a guy because, let's say, I don't know, it's a coin flip in the 1st round. And that's the best round for a wide receiver. It's the best round for anybody, right? And even then, it's like, what's the success, percent on getting a good wide receiver? I don't know, maybe 70%. But even then, that 70% doesn't, include, that's not just top 5 guys.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like wide receivers, honestly, is the one position where now maybe that at least I'm just like thinking like they kind of do hit the most. At least it feels like, like you take like going back to 2020, like Ruggs is in that. Obviously, that just didn't work out because of other stuff. But you have CeeDee Lamb in there, you have Justin Jefferson in there. Like it seems like every time there's 4 or 5 wide receivers taking in the first round, this is just the first round of a draft. It seems like 2 or 3 of them do become Pro Bowl plus type players. Where at other positions, it really is hard to say that. Maybe defensive end, but even then, I feel like a lot of teams take defensive ends and maybe one guy sticks out. It just like doesn't, it feels like wide receiver is a pretty good success rate. Even if it's 70-80%, like that's pretty good for the NFL in the first round. So not saying again, I don't think it's possible to ever find another Tyreek Hill, but I think it's possible to find someone like him, or at least someone maybe doesn't maybe not that play style, but someone who can replace that production at least somewhat. I think it is possible. Maybe not this year, but for the next couple years, I think it is possible.
Yeah, production wise, maybe. But is he going to be the same guy? I don't think so. We'll see. Maybe I'm slightly. I think it's slightly hard to get a wide receiver just because I'm a Patriots fan, and we have literally just never been able to draft wide receivers. If you remember N'Keal Harry, he was a first round pick. He was in
Yeah,
the
look,
same
some of
draft.
them,
Some of them don't work out. No, I agree.
yeah, like Jalen Rager. I mean, there's a ton of guys, but again, a lot of
And
guys
Henry
do work
Ruggs,
out.
by
It
the
feels
way,
like.
regardless of off the field, he was not working out at that current time on the field either. So say what you will, I think it's fair to say that was a bust of a pick anyways, regardless of what happened off the field. But um yeah, Harry was in the same draft as the DK Metcalf draft. DK went in the second round or whatever, so I guess that's not necessarily fair. But Harry was a first round pick, anyways. That was our three most and three least favorite moves of the offseason, at least so far. Talk about Metcalf. He's a guy that could be traded. He's a guy that could be traded to the Chiefs. I mean, we'll see. It's a guy that's been
I
rumored to get traded. We'll see. I mean, what's your opinion on it?
Well, I was gonna say one thing I saw about that, and this it just wouldn't make sense because you'd have to pay Metcalf a huge contract. I think he's a free agent next year, or at least he's eligible, or whatever it is. It's in the next 1 to 2 years. So wouldn't you rather just pay Tyreek Hill that money than pay DK Metcalf that money? Because obviously Hill's the better receiver, even if he's older by a couple of years. Like that's the one thing I'd say about that that just doesn't make any sense. Not saying that you're suggesting that or anything. Obviously, it's just something that is out there. But he could be traded, whether it's to the Chiefs or another team. I think it's possible. I think the Seahawks would like to keep him though, because I think they're looking at a quarterback this year or next year. So I think they probably would like to keep him. Lockett could be a trade candidate though, because obviously he's old. I think Lockett's like 32, 31. He's actually a lot older than you really think he is.
Yeah, I don't love Metcalf. I mean, I don't think he's as consistent as I would like from a receiver. We just talked about Hill. Hill's not consistent, but I don't think Hill. I don't whatever. I'm not gonna get into it. But anyways, we'll see what happens. There's still a bunch of moves to be made in the offseason and in the NFL at least. I mean, we've probably had 70 to 80% of them have been done. Maybe more, maybe 85%. But there's still another 15% of moves that are left to be made or maybe not made. Garoppolo's a guy that could be dealt. Metcalf, Lockett,
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield is a guy that like I'd be shocked if he's not on a new team. But we'll see. There's a lot of moves. I think at some point we'll come out with our mock drafts. We're gonna talk more NBA, more MLB. But we're looking to get back in the full swing of things. We took about 10 days off, probably, maybe slightly more, and we're ready to get back into it. So, anything else you want to talk about before we end it for the episode, or
No, I think just everything you said. MLB mock draft and yeah, some NBA stuff. Again, playoffs are. I think there's about 20 games left. No, there's about like 10 games left. There is. So it's like getting towards that point where the playoffs are starting, play-in tournament. And obviously we haven't even really mentioned it, but March Madness, obviously tonight as we're recording this, the Sweet 16 starts. But we'll probably talk about that more when it gets to the probably Elite Eight, Final Four, I would say. We would have talked about it if we weren't on break, but the first couple of games been a lot of upsets so far, so it's going to be an interesting final. But yeah, we're going to talk about all that in the next couple weeks in the next month.
yeah. But NBA wise, Celtics looking to make a push. Are you in on the Celtics or no? Just quickly, and then we'll call it. But are you in on the Celtics or?
I'm going to say no. I still like a couple other teams, and again, the news today about Kyrie being able to play home games that changes a lot of things, but Yeah, well, right
Wow,
now
suddenly
it's a
when
no.
everything hits the fan for Brandon, he just crawls back to the Nets. Wow. I mean, this
Well,
was
I'm
my
still on
team.
the Bucks. I'm still on the Bucks. I didn't say I'd pick the Nets. I just said it changes a lot of things. They're still the seventh seed, by the way. They're not. They're still in the play. Not saying they wouldn't win that game, but they're in the play-in right now. So unless they get out of that, I mean, if they're in the play-in and they have to play the two seed, I think the two seeds it could be Philadelphia. I mean, imagine playing Philadelphia in the first round. Like that's you may win that series, but that's easily a 7 game series, and you could easily lose that series. So they have to get out of the play-in first.
Yep. If the playoffs ended right now they're the 8th seed, so they'd play
They're the eight
at
seeds.
yeah. Right now they played at Toronto. If they win that, then they would play the Heat. Or well, sorry, they play Philly technically.
And if they were to play at Toronto, Kyrie wouldn't be able to play that game because that
That's true.
Canada
Yeah,
you can't play in Canada. So if they were to play Toronto, there'd be no Kyrie.
that's true. Listen, I mean I'm a no on the Celtics making it to the finals still right now, but I think this team has something going. I think this team has finally found its stride after 2+ years of being in this weird funk where it's like, are we ready to trade Jalen and Tatum and blow the whole thing up? Um, they finally found something. Out of the West, wow. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but I think
Yeah,
this is shaping up for an exciting playoffs, and I think it's finally we're getting into the into years where we actually don't just hard know who the finals champion is going to be, barring injuries. There was like a 5 or 6 year period where it's like, barring injuries, this is your team that's going to win the finals, and this is going to be your finals matchup. I mean, to me, there's still 3 or 4 teams in each conference that have a shot, and I think the West is actually pretty wide open. It's pretty wide open
yeah,
right
I
now.
think it is. I think it is too. Yeah.
But anyways, that's it for this episode. So we'll be back probably in the next 7 days. So hopefully in the studio, by the way. But anyways, goodbye.